The champagne flute shattered against marble before Elena Rodriguez even registered what was happening. One moment she stood on the candlelit terrace of her lakeside bistro, surrounded by 40 guests celebrating 12 years of marriage. The next moment, cold liquid dripped down her emerald dress while a stranger's voice cut through the evening air like broken glass. "Enjoy your last party as Mrs. Rodriguez," the woman said, stepping forward from the shadows near the garden entrance. She was young, maybe 26, wearing a white cocktail dress that seemed chosen specifically to make a statement. Her dark hair cascaded over bare shoulders as she pointed a manicured finger at Elena. "Because tomorrow, everyone's going to know the truth about your perfect little life." The string quartet stopped mid-note. Waiters froze with dessert plates balanced on their palms. Elena's husband Marcus stood 3 feet away, his face draining of color like water through a sieve. The silk tie Elena had straightened for him an hour ago suddenly looked like a noose around his throat. Elena didn't speak. She didn't move. She simply watched as the woman, this stranger who had just crashed their anniversary celebration, walked closer with the confidence of someone who believed she held all the cards. "My name is Gabrielle," the woman announced to the crowd, her voice rising with theatrical flair. "And I've been sleeping with Marcus Rodriguez for 14 months. He told me he was leaving you. He told me this party was just for show. He told me..." "Gabrielle, stop." Marcus finally found his voice, stepping between the two women. His hands trembled as he reached toward the intruder. "This isn't the time or place. We talked about this." "We talked?" Gabrielle's laugh was bitter and sharp. "You mean you lied? You said you'd tell her by tonight. You promised we'd start our life together after the stupid anniversary was over. But I'm done waiting for you to grow a spine." The guests began murmuring. Phones appeared from purses and pockets. Elena knew what would happen next. This moment would be recorded, shared, dissected by strangers who didn't know her name but would judge her life anyway. Gabrielle turned back to Elena, her eyes blazing with something between triumph and desperation. "He doesn't love you anymore. He hasn't for years. You're just the obligation he's too guilty to leave. But I'm doing you a favor. I'm setting you both free." Then she did something Elena would never forget. Gabrielle stepped forward, gathered saliva in her mouth, and spat directly into Elena's face. The crowd gasped. Someone screamed. Marcus lunged forward too late. His expensive shoes squeaking on the wet marble. Elena stood perfectly still as the spit slid down her left cheek. She felt the warmth of it, the humiliation of it, the weight of 40 pairs of eyes watching her react. Inside, something cold and ancient was awakening a fury that had been sleeping for months, waiting for exactly this moment to emerge. But outside, Elena remained ice. She reached into her beaded clutch and pulled out a linen handkerchief. She wiped her face slowly, methodically, as if removing nothing more offensive than a smudge of lipstick. When she finished, she folded the handkerchief into a perfect square and placed it on the nearest table. Then Elena looked directly at Gabrielle and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a woman who knew something the rest of the room didn't. "What's your full name?" Elena asked, her voice calm as still water. "I want to remember it correctly." Elena's hands stopped shaking around 3 in the morning. She sat in her home office, the room Marcus never entered, because he said it was too cluttered, surrounded by folders that told a story. Her husband thought she was too naive to read. The house was silent. Marcus had left the party right after Gabrielle, chasing her into the parking lot, while guests whispered and waited to see what would happen next. Elena had stayed. She thanked people for coming, accepted awkward hugs, and served the anniversary cake alone. By midnight, everyone had gone home, leaving her with uneaten food and a marriage that had just died in public. But Elena had known the marriage was dead long before tonight. 3 months ago, She'd been searching for their homeowner's insurance documents when she found the credit card statement, tucked inside an old tax folder. It was for an account she didn't recognize, listing charges she'd never made, a jewelry store in the city, a hotel downtown, repeated purchases at a boutique that sold designer women's clothing in sizes Elena didn't wear. Her first thought had been identity theft. Her second thought, the one that made her stomach drop, was the truth. She'd logged into their joint bank account, the one Marcus managed because he said Elena was too busy with the restaurant to worry about finances. What she found made her close the laptop and sit in darkness for an hour. $28,000 had been moved over 9 months. Transfers to the mysterious credit card account. Cash withdrawals with no explanation. Payments to places Elena had never heard of. And Marcus had been so careful moving small amounts at irregular intervals, probably thinking Elena would never notice. He was right that she'd been too busy to notice. Elena ran 3 restaurants across the county, each one requiring her attention from dawn until well past dinner service. She'd built her business from a single food truck 10 years ago, growing it into something she was proud of. She worked weekends and holidays, missed family gatherings, sacrificed social life, all while Marcus complained she was never home. Now she understood why he'd wanted her working so much. It gave him time to build a second life. Elena had spent the next 3 months becoming a detective in her own marriage. She hired an investigator named Vincent, a retired police officer who promised discretion. Vincent confirmed what Elena already knew and provided details she hadn't wanted to imagine. Gabrielle Torres worked as a pharmaceutical sales representative. She'd met Marcus at a medical conference where he'd been the keynote speaker about hospital architecture design. They'd started their affair in Dallas and continued it when Gabrielle relocated to the area 6 months later. Marcus had helped her find an apartment, one of the cash withdrawals Elena had questioned. He'd bought her furniture, jewelry, clothes. He'd taken her to the coast for long weekends while telling Elena he was at architecture conventions. Vincent had given Elena photographs, Marcus and Gabrielle at restaurants, walking hand in hand through the park, kissing in his car. The images had made Elena's chest tight, but she'd studied each one carefully, memorizing details that might matter later. "She's pushing him," Vincent had said during their last meeting 2 weeks ago. "I've seen the text messages. She wants him to leave you. She's getting impatient. Something's going to happen soon." Elena had nodded, already formulating her plan. She'd met with her attorney, Carolyn, a sharp-eyed woman who'd handled divorces for 20 years. Together, they built a case that would protect everything Elena had worked for. "Your restaurants are safe," Carolyn had assured her. "You started them before marriage, and you've kept the finances completely separate. He has no claim to those. The house is in both names, but given his financial misconduct, we can argue you deserve it. This evidence of him using joint funds for the affair, that's going to matter." Elena had filed the divorce papers 3 weeks ago. She'd had them served to Marcus at his office on a Tuesday morning. He'd called her immediately, voice tight with panic. "What is this?" He'd demanded. "Are you serious right now?" "Completely serious," Elena had said calmly. "I know about Gabrielle. I know about the money. I know everything." There had been a long silence. "Then, we can fix this." "It was a mistake. I'll end it right now. Just give me a chance." "No." "Elena, please." She'd hung up. That evening, Marcus had come home with flowers and apologies, begging her to reconsider. He'd promised it was over with Gabrielle. He'd sworn he'd never stray again. He'd cried actual tears sitting at their kitchen table. Elena had watched him perform his regret and felt nothing. The man she'd loved for 12 years was a stranger wearing a familiar face. "The divorce is happening," she told him. "You can make it easy or make it difficult, but it's happening. Marcus had chosen difficult. He'd refused to sign the papers. He'd told Elena she was overreacting, that she was throwing away their life over one mistake. He'd tried to turn their friends against her, painting himself as the victim of a cold, unforgiving wife. What Marcus didn't know was that Elena had recorded every conversation since finding the credit card statement. She had documentation of his lies, his manipulation, his attempts to gaslight her into believing she was wrong to be angry. And she'd known Gabrielle would eventually force the issue. An affair thrives in shadows. The mistress always wants to step into the light. Elena had simply given her the perfect stage. Now, sitting in her office at 3 in the morning, Elena allowed herself one moment of grief. She mourned the marriage she'd thought she had. She mourned the trust that was broken. She mourned 12 years given to someone who hadn't valued them. Then she dried her eyes, straightened her shoulders, and opened her laptop. Tomorrow she had work to do. Elira needed to see the video of tonight's incident assault charges, which strengthened their case. Her accountant needed updated financial records. Her restaurant managers needed to know she was taking the next week off to handle personal matters. Elena Rodriguez was done being the woman people underestimated. Starting tomorrow, everyone would learn who she really was. The video had 12 million views by Thursday morning. Someone at the party, Elena never found out who had posted the footage online with the caption, "Anniversary party goes wrong when Mistress shows up." The algorithm had done the rest. Pushing it to feeds across the country, Elena watched the clip once on her phone while drinking coffee in her silent kitchen. She saw herself standing motionless as Gabrielle spat in her face. She saw Marcus's horrified expression. She saw the moment she'd smiled at Gabrielle, that cold, knowing smile that had made the younger woman step backward. The comment section was brutal and beautiful at the same time. The wife's composure, though. Ice Queen energy. That smile at the end gave me chills. The mistress has no idea what's coming. Imagine being dumb enough to spit on someone at their own restaurant. Girl. She OWNs that building. The husband looks like he's about to pass out. Good. He should. But there are other comments to ones that made Elena's jaw tighten. The wife probably drove him to cheat. Look how cold she is. If she was a better wife, he wouldn't have needed someone else. Marriage takes two people. Don't blame the mistress for finding love. Elena closed the app and set her phone face down on the counter. She'd expected this. The internet always found ways to blame women for men's choices. It didn't matter. Public opinion wouldn't decide her divorce settlement. Her phone rang. Carolyn, her attorney. Have you seen the video? Carolyn asked without preamble. Unfortunately. Good news. It's excellent evidence. Gabrielle Torres assaulted you in front of 40 witnesses with video documentation. Bad news. It's made you very public. You're going to get media requests. I'm not interested in interviews. I figured. But you should know Marcus's attorney called this morning. He wants to settle. Elena stood up straighter. What changed his mind? The video. Marcus's reputation is taking a significant hit. His firm is getting calls from concerned clients. His partners are unhappy. Apparently, several people have recognized him and made comments. He wants this resolved quietly and quickly. What are his terms? He'll sign the divorce papers and agree to our original asset division if you don't press assault charges against Gabrielle. Elena laughed a short, sharp sound. He's protecting her? Even now? Seems that way. Or maybe he's protecting himself from the publicity of a criminal trial. Either way, it's your decision. Elena thought about it. Part of her wanted to press charges, wanted Gabrielle to face consequences for that moment of violence. But another part, the part that was tired and ready to be done, saw the strategic value in accepting the offer. Tell him I agree on one condition, Elena said. He has 30 days to move out of the house completely. I want him gone by the end of the month. Done. I'll have the papers ready by tomorrow. After Caroline hung up, Elena sat in the quiet kitchen of the house she'd soon have to herself. She'd bought this place 8 years ago, when the first restaurant became profitable. Marcus had loved it immediately, the high ceilings, the modern kitchen, the view of the lake. He'd never known that Elena had paid the entire down payment from her business account, money she'd earned before they married. The house was hers. The restaurants were hers. The life she built was hers. Marcus had just been living in it. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Sophia, who'd been at the party. I'm bringing lunch. Don't argue. Sophia arrived an hour later with containers of Thai food and a bottle of wine. They sat on Elena's back deck overlooking the lake, eating in comfortable silence until Sophia finally spoke. How are you really doing? Sophia asked. I don't know, Elena admitted. I'm angry. I'm relieved. I'm embarrassed that everyone saw that video. I'm satisfied that Marcus is finally facing consequences. I'm exhausted. All of it at once. That sounds normal. Does it feel normal to have your marriage end in viral video format? Sophia smiled sadly. Nothing about this is normal. But you handled it better than most people would. You didn't scream or cry or attack her. You just stood there like you knew something she didn't. I did know something she didn't. What? Elena set down her fork. That Marcus would never choose her. Not really. He liked having both the stable wife at home and the exciting girlfriend on the side. The minute Gabrielle forced him to choose publicly, she ruined the fantasy. He resents her for that video almost as much as he resents me for filing divorce papers. You think they'll stay together? Not a chance. Gabrielle wanted the idea of Marcus, the successful architect with money and status. She didn't want the reality, a man who lies easily and spends money that isn't his. When she realizes what she actually won, she'll leave. Give it 6 months. Sophia studied her friend. You've thought about this a lot. I've had 3 months to think about it. That's the benefit of knowing before everyone else did. I got to prepare while they were still living in their fantasy. They ate in silence for a while, watching boats drift across the lake. Elena felt something loosening in her chest, some tight knot of tension finally beginning to unravel. What happens now? Sophia asked. Marcus moves out. The divorce is finalized. I'd figure out what my life looks like without him in it. Are you scared? Elena considered the question honestly. A little. I've been with Marcus since I was 23. I don't really know who I am without him. But I'm also excited. For the first time in years, I get to make decisions without considering anyone else. I get to build whatever life I want. You're going to be amazing, Sophia said firmly. I hope so. That evening, after Sophia left, Elena walked through her house room by room. The living room where they'd hosted dinner parties. The bedroom where they'd slept side by side for 12 years. The office where Marcus had planned his lies while Elena worked late at the restaurant's dot. She stopped in front of their wedding photo hanging in the hallway. They looked so young, so hopeful. Elena in her white dress, Marcus in his tuxedo. Both of them smiling like they'd won the lottery. She took the photo down and carried it to the garage, placing it in a box marked donations. She'd love that version of Marcus, or maybe she'd love the idea of who she thought he was. But that man was gone, if he'd ever existed at all. Tomorrow, Marcus would sign the papers. Tomorrow, her marriage would officially end. Tomorrow, she'd start the process of becoming whoever she was supposed to be without him. But tonight, Elena poured herself a glass of wine and sat on her deck watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and pink. She was alone, but she wasn't lonely. And that felt like the beginning of something new. Marcus moved out on a Tuesday, afternoon while Elena was at her flagship restaurant reviewing quarterly reports. She deliberately scheduled the meeting to avoid being home during his departure. She didn't trust herself to remain civil if she had to watch him pack boxes and pretend to be the injured party. When she returned that evening, the house felt different, empty in ways that had nothing to do with missing furniture. Marcus had taken his clothes, his books, his collection of architectural models he'd built over the years. He'd left the couch, the dining table, most of the kitchen items, probably because he knew Elena had paid for them. He'd also left a note on the kitchen counter, handwritten on cream stationery that Elena recognized from their wedding thank you cards. "I never meant to hurt you. I hope someday you can forgive me." Elena read it twice and threw it in the recycling bin. His hope for forgiveness wasn't her problem to solve. The next few weeks passed in a strange blur of normalcy and chaos. Her restaurants operated smoothly, her staff professional and supportive, without mentioning the video that had made her briefly famous. But everywhere else, Elena felt the weight of public attention. People recognized her at the grocery store, in the bank, at the gas station. Most were kind, offering sympathetic smiles or brief words of support. Others were cruelly curious, asking invasive questions about her marriage or making jokes about the viral moment. Elena learned to wear sunglasses indoors and shop during off-peak hours. The media requests continued. Morning talk shows wanted her on their couches discussing surviving public humiliation. Podcasts wanted deep dives into the psychology of betrayal. Lifestyle magazines wanted her tips for thriving after divorce. Elena declined them all through Caroline's office, maintaining the privacy she'd always valued, but the attention found her anyway. A food blogger showed up at her restaurant, claiming to write a review, but actually wanting gossip about Marcus. A local television station filmed the building's exterior for a segment about the infamous anniversary party. Someone started a Reddit thread analyzing every detail of the viral video, discussing Elena's clothing choices and facial expressions like she was a character in a television drama. "This is exhausting," Elena told Sophia over coffee one Saturday morning. "I just want to go back to being invisible." "You were never invisible," Sophia pointed out. "You owned 3 successful restaurants. You just weren't internet famous. There's a difference. I preferred the first version. It'll die down eventually. The internet has the attention span of a goldfish. Next week, someone else will do something viral and everyone will forget about you." Sophia was half right. The viral attention did fade after about 3 weeks, replaced by fresher scandals and newer tragedies. But in Elena's personal life, the struggles intensified. Her mother called from Arizona, voice tight with concern and judgment. "I saw the video, Elena. Everyone I know has seen it. Why didn't you tell me you were having problems?" "I was handling it privately, Mom. By letting that woman spit on you? By humiliating yourself in front of everyone you know?" Elena closed her eyes and counted to 5. "I didn't let her do anything. She assaulted me. There's a difference. Well, people are talking. My book club keeps asking me questions I can't answer. It's embarrassing. I'm sorry my marriage falling apart is inconvenient for your book club," Elena said, her voice sharper than intended. Her mother gasped. "That's not what I meant. I have to go, Mom. I'll call you later." She hung up before her mother could respond, immediately feeling guilty but also relieved. She'd deal with family disappointment later. Right now, she had enough to manage. Marcus, for his part, was spiraling. Elena heard about it through mutual friends who felt compelled to keep her updated despite her complete disinterest. His firm had asked him to take a leave of absence after 2 clients specifically requested different architects. His partners were concerned about the company's reputation being damaged by association. He'd moved into a rental apartment across town, apparently alone. Gabrielle had disappeared from his social media and from the city. Entirely rumor was she'd relocated to her hometown in North Carolina to escape the aftermath of her viral moment. Elena felt no satisfaction hearing about Marcus's struggles. She felt nothing at all, which was somehow more unsettling than anger would have been. This man had been her partner for 12 years, and now he was just a character in someone else's gossip. One evening, Elena sat in her home office reviewing financial documents when her accountant Angela called with news that made her stomach sink. "Elena, we have a problem. Marcus made some withdrawals from your joint business account before the divorce was finalized. Technically legal since his name was on the account, but definitely not ethical." "How much?" $42,000. Elena felt her jaw clench. "When?" "The day he moved out. He withdrew it in 3 separate transactions to stay under reporting limits. It hit today. Can we get it back?" "That's a question for your lawyer. But it's complicated since his name was legitimately on that account. You should have removed him when you filed the divorce papers." "I didn't think he'd..." Elena stopped. Of course, she'd thought he might do something like this. She'd just been focused on so many other details that this one had slipped through. She called Caroline immediately. "I can file a motion," Caroline said after Elena explained the situation. "Argue that he took the money in bad faith, knowing the divorce was pending. But honestly, Elena, it's going to be an uphill battle. His name was on the account. He technically had the right to access those funds. So he just gets to steal from me. It's not theft if his name was on the account. I know that's not what you want to hear, but legally, that's where we stand." Elena hung up and sat in the dark office, fury burning in her chest. $42,000. Money she'd earned through years of hard work, taken by a man who'd already taken so much. But beneath the anger was something else. Determination. Marcus thought he could take from her and face no consequences. He thought she'd accept this latest betrayal the way she'd initially accepted his affair, with quiet dignity and private pain. He was wrong. Elena opened her laptop and began making calls. She had resources Marcus didn't know about. She had connections he'd never valued. And she had something he'd underestimated from the beginning, the willingness to fight for what was hers. If Marcus wanted a war, she'd give him one. But this time, she'd make sure everyone was watching when she won. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Marcus's own arrogance. While Elena was quietly building her case about the stolen funds, Marcus was making mistakes that would ultimately cost him everything he'd tried to protect. Vincent, the private investigator, called Elena on a Thursday morning with news that changed the trajectory of everything. "You're going to want to see this," he said, his voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who'd found exactly what he was looking for. "Can you meet me at my office in an hour?" Elena rearranged her schedule and drove to Vincent's small office in a strip mall downtown. He had a folder waiting on his desk thick with documents and photographs that told a story even uglier than Elena had imagined. After the divorce was filed, "I kept tabs on Marcus's activities at your request," Vincent began, spreading papers across the desk. "He's been sloppy. Angry people always are." The documents showed a pattern of financial misconduct that went far beyond the $42,000 Marcus had taken from the joint account. He'd been systematically moving money for months, creating new accounts in his name only, transferring funds from shared investments into personal holdings, even forging Elena's signature on documents to access money that wasn't his to touch. "This," Elena said quietly, pointing to a forged signature, "is fraud." "Yes, it is. And there's more." Vincent pulled out another set of documents. "Marcus has been telling people, including his business partners and some of your mutual friends, that you're mentally unstable. He's claiming the viral video was a setup you orchestrated to embarrass him. He's saying you've been financially abusive throughout the marriage, controlling all the money and forcing him to account for every dollar. Elena felt cold fury settle in her chest. None of that is true. I know. And I can prove it. I've been recording his conversations at his regular coffee shop. He meets friends there and talks loudly about his crazy ex-wife without realizing the person at the next table is one of my associates. We have hours of him lying, spinning false narratives, painting himself as a victim. Elena looked at the evidence spread before her. This was the man she'd married, the man she'd trusted, now desperately trying to destroy her reputation to save his own. What can we do with this? She asked. Your lawyer can use it in the divorce proceedings. The forged signatures alone could result in criminal charges if you want to pursue them. The defamation is actionable. And the pattern of financial fraud might actually help you recover that $42,000 he took, if we can prove he took it as part of a larger scheme to defraud you. That's different from simply withdrawing from a joint account. Elena gathered the documents carefully. Thank you, Vincent. Send me your invoice. You've more than earned it. She drove directly to Caroline's office, spreading the evidence across the conference table. Caroline's eyes widened as she read through the documents. This changes everything, Caroline said. With evidence of fraud and forged signatures, we can petition to reopen the settlement negotiations. The judge will not look kindly on this behavior. And the defamation, Elena, you could own him by the time this is done. I don't want to own him, Elena said quietly. I just want what's mine. And I want him to stop lying about me. Caroline nodded. Then let's make that happen. I'll file motions tomorrow. Be prepared. This is going to get uglier before it gets better. Marcus is backed into a corner now, and cornered animals tend to lash out. Caroline was right. When Marcus received the new legal documents detailing the fraud allegations, he reacted exactly as Elena had feared. He called her directly the first time they'd spoken since he'd moved out. You're trying to destroy me, he said, his voice shaking with rage. You're not satisfied with humiliating me publicly. Now you want to ruin me financially and professionally too. I want what you stole from me, Elena replied calmly. That's all. I didn't steal anything. That money was mine. I earned it too. The money you forged my signature to access? That was yours? Silence on the other end of the line. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I have proof, Marcus. I have documents, recordings, photographs. I have everything. You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself from you. There's a difference. Marcus's breathing was ragged. I loved you, Elena. I know I made mistakes, but I loved you. And now you're treating me like a criminal. You forged my signature and stole tens of thousands of dollars from our shared accounts while lying to everyone. We know about my character. What would you call that? I was desperate. You have all these assets I didn't even know about. You're going to be fine. I'm the one losing everything. Elena felt something break inside her. The last thread of sympathy she'd been holding on to despite everything. You lost everything when you decided our marriage wasn't worth your loyalty. The rest is just consequences. She hung up. That evening, Elena sat on her deck watching the sunset, holding a glass of wine she wasn't drinking. Sophia had texted asking if she was okay, but Elena hadn't responded. She needed time to process what was happening. The way her marriage wasn't just ending, but exploding into something ugly and public and permanent. Her phone rang again. This time, it was a number she didn't recognize. Elena Rodriguez? A woman's voice asked, Yes? This is Diane Chun from the district attorney's office. I've been reviewing some documents your attorney forwarded to us regarding potential fraud in your divorce case. I'd like to discuss them with you. Do you have time tomorrow? Elena sat up straighter. The district attorney's office? Yes, ma'am. When fraud involves forged signatures and theft over certain thresholds, it becomes a criminal matter, not just a civil one. We'd like to investigate. Elena gave her a time to meet, then hung up and stared at the lake. This was the turning point, the moment when Marcus's actions moved from betrayal to crime, from private pain to public consequence. She thought about the young woman she'd been when she married Marcus, full of hope and trust and plans for their future together. She thought about all the years she'd worked to build something stable and good, while he'd been systematically undermining everything she'd created. And she thought about who she was now. A woman who understood her worth, who refused to accept less than she deserved, who would fight for what belonged to her, no matter how difficult the battle became. Tomorrow, she'd meet with the district attorney. Tomorrow she'd face whatever came next. But tonight, Elena Rodriguez sat on her deck and let herself feel everything. The anger, the grief, the relief, the determination. The hardest part wasn't over. But for the first time since finding that credit card statement, Elena felt like she was going to win. The meeting with Diane Chun took place in a downtown office building that smelled of coffee and old paper. Elena sat across from the assistant district attorney, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an organized demeanor that immediately put Elena at ease. "I've reviewed the evidence your attorney provided," Diane said, laying out the documents Elena had seen in Vincent's office. "This is substantial. Forged signatures, unauthorized transfers, systematic defrauding of a spouse during divorce proceedings. If we can prove all of this, Mr. Rodriguez could face serious charges." "How serious?" Elena asked. "Multiple felonies, financial fraud, identity theft through signature forgery, wire fraud for the electronic transfers. We're talking potential prison time if convicted." Elena sat back in her chair, absorbing this information. Prison. Marcus could go to prison for what he'd done. Part of her, the part still raw from betrayal, felt a dark satisfaction at the thought. But another part hesitated. What happens if I don't pursue criminal charges? She asked. Diane looked surprised. "That's your choice, of course. We could still investigate based on the evidence, but your cooperation would be essential for a conviction. Without it, the case would be much weaker. But I could recover the money through civil court? Potentially, though it would take longer. Criminal prosecution tends to motivate swift restitution." Diane studied Elena carefully. "May I ask why you're hesitating?" "Most people in your situation want maximum consequences." Elena thought about how to explain it. "I want my money back. I want him to face consequences for lying and stealing. But I don't know if I want him in prison. That feels excessive. He forged your signature multiple times to steal from you." "I know. And that's criminal. But he's also the man I spent 12 years with. I can hate what he did without wanting to completely destroy his life." Diane nodded slowly. "That's actually quite mature of you. Many fraud victims struggle with similar conflicts, the desire for justice versus the reluctance to inflict severe punishment on someone they once cared about." "What would you do?" Elena asked. "If you were in my position?" Diane considered the question. "I'd ask myself what outcome I really want. Do you want punishment for punishment's sake? Or do you want restitution and the assurance that he can't hurt you anymore?" There's no wrong answer, but they lead to different paths. Elena spent the rest of the weekend thinking about that conversation. She walked the property around her lake house, cooked elaborate meals she didn't eat, reorganized her office 3 times. She was avoiding the decision because she knew that whatever she chose would defy not just Marcus's future, but her own character. On Sunday evening, Sophia came over with pizza and honest advice. "I think you should throw the book at him," Sophia said bluntly. "He stole from you, lied about you, trying to destroy your reputation. Why show him mercy he never showed you?" "Because I'm not doing this to be like him," Elena replied. I'm doing this to be myself. I don't know if the version of myself I want to be sends her ex-husband to prison, even if he deserves it. Maybe especially then. Mercy isn't mercy if people deserve it. Sophia was quiet for a moment. You're a better person than I am. I don't know about better. Maybe just tired of fighting. The next morning, Elena called Caroline with her decision. I want to negotiate. I'll agree not to pursue criminal charges if Marcus returns every dollar he took, signs an agreement admitting to the fraud, and stops spreading lies about me. He'll also pay my legal fees and agree to a restraining order preventing any contact except through attorneys. That's generous considering what he did. It's strategic. Criminal trials take years and drain energy I'd rather spend on my business. This way, I get my money back immediately. He faces consequences, and I can move on with my life. Caroline was silent for a beat. All right. I'll reach out to his attorney. But Elena, you know he might not accept these terms. He might call your bluff and gamble that you won't pursue charges. Then we'll know he values his pride more than his freedom. And I'll hand everything over to the DEA. The negotiation took 2 weeks of back and forth through attorneys. Marcus initially refused, claiming Elena was blackmailing him. His lawyer pointed out that using the threat of criminal charges to negotiate a settlement was ethically questionable. Caroline's response was swift and brutal. My client isn't threatening anything. She's simply choosing between two legal options: civil recovery versus criminal prosecution. Mr. Rodriguez can prefer one outcome over the other, but he doesn't get to call it blackmail when someone offers him a choice. Eventually, Marcus agreed. The terms were finalized in a document Elena read 3 times before signing. Complete financial restitution, a signed admission of fraud for civil purposes, a gag order preventing him from discussing Elena publicly, and a restraining order requiring him to maintain distance. The money was returned to Elena's account within 72 hours. Marcus's signature on the admission document was shaky, embarrassed. Elena looked at it once, then filed it away in her safe. She'd won. She'd recovered what was stolen. And she'd done it without destroying Marcus completely, even though he tried to destroy her. That evening, Elena met with her restaurant managers to announce her plans for expansion. She'd been too distracted by the divorce to focus on growth, but now the path was clear. I'm opening 2 more locations, she told her team. 1 downtown, 1 in the Arts District. We're also launching a catering service for corporate events. The divorce settlement gave me capital I wasn't expecting, and I'm investing it all back into the business. Her staff applauded. Her head chef, Maria, approached her after the meeting. We heard about what happened with your ex-husband. The legal stuff. You handled it with a lot of grace. I don't know about grace. I just wanted it over. Still, you could have buried him, and you didn't. That takes strength. Elena smiled. Or maybe just self-preservation. Burying people is exhausting. That night, alone in her house, Elena reflected on the choice she'd made. She could have sent Marcus to prison. She could have taken satisfaction in his complete destruction. But she'd chosen mercy instead, not because he'd earned it, but because she wanted to be the kind of person who could offer it. The act of showing mercy when she had the power to demand vengeance had taken more courage than Elena had expected. It would have been easier to let rage guide her decisions. But easy wasn't the same as right, and Elena was building a life based on who she wanted to be, not who her anger tempted her to become. She'd won the battle by choosing not to fight it to total destruction. And somehow, that felt like the biggest victory of all. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Elena stood in her newly opened downtown restaurant, watching the evening crowd fill the dining room. The space was everything she'd envisioned: exposed brick walls, warm lighting, an open kitchen where diners could watch chefs work. It was elegant without being pretentious, welcoming without being casual. It was perfect. Table 8 wants to compliment the chef, her hostess said, gesturing toward a couple near the window. They asked specifically to meet the owner. Elena made her way to the table, smiling her professional smile. The couple was in their 60s, dressed for a special occasion. The man stood while Elena approached. "My wife and I wanted to thank you personally," he said. "This is our 40th anniversary, and this meal was extraordinary. But more than that," he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I recognize you from that video that went around last year, the anniversary party." Elena felt her smile stiffen slightly, but she nodded. "That was me." The man's wife reached out and gently touched Elena's hand. "I wanted to tell you something. When I saw that video, I was in the middle of divorce proceedings myself. My husband had been unfaithful, and I was devastated. But watching how you handled that moment with such dignity, it gave me strength. It reminded me that I could survive with my head held high. You inspired a lot of people," the man added. "More than you probably know." Elena felt something catch in her throat. "Thank you for telling me that. It means more than you can imagine." After they left, Elena stood in the busy restaurant surrounded by satisfied diners and realized something profound. The worst moment of her life, the public humiliation, the viral video, the painful ending, had somehow become a source of strength for strangers she'd never meet. She excused herself and stepped into her office, needing a moment alone. Her phone showed messages from Sophia, from her mother, from various friends checking in. But there was also an email that caught her attention from an organization called Women's Financial Empowerment Network. "Dear Ms. Rodriguez, we're hosting a conference next month for women navigating divorce and financial independence. We followed your story and would be honored if you consider being a keynote speaker. We believe your experience could help many women who are facing similar challenges." Elena read the email twice. Public speaking wasn't something she'd ever considered. She'd spent the past months trying to return to privacy, to rebuild her life away from attention. But here was an opportunity to turn her pain into something useful for others. She composed a careful response, agreeing to speak at the conference. The weeks leading up to the event were filled with preparation. Elena worked with a speaking coach to organize her thoughts, to find the balance between honesty and privacy. She practiced her delivery until the words felt natural. The morning of the conference, Elena stood backstage, listening to the crowd of 300 women gathering in the hotel ballroom. Her hands were shaking. Her professional persona, the confident restaurant owner, the successful businesswoman, felt insufficient for this moment. "You're going to be great," Sophia whispered, squeezing her hand. "Just tell the truth." Elena walked onto the stage to polite applause and looked out at the sea of faces. Women of all ages, all backgrounds, all at different stages of their own journeys through divorce and rebuilding. She saw herself in every face. "My name is Elena Rodriguez," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "About a year and a half ago, my husband's mistress spit in my face at our anniversary party. Someone filmed it. 12 million people watched it happen. The room was completely silent. I'm not here to talk about that moment, though. I'm here to talk about what came before it and what came after, because that's where the real story lives." She talked about finding the credit card receipts, about the months of investigation, about choosing to be strategic rather than emotional. She talked about discovering strength she didn't know she had. She talked about mercy and justice and the complicated space between them. "I learned that dignity isn't about what happens to you," Elena said. "It's about how you respond to what happens to you. I learned that you can be devastated and still be strategic. You can be heartbroken and still be smart. You can show mercy to someone who hurt you without betraying yourself." She saw women nodding, some wiping their eyes. She was telling their story as much as her own. "The most important thing I learned is this. Your worth isn't determined by whether someone chooses you. It's determined by whether you choose yourself, every single day, in every decision, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. The applause when she finished was thunderous. Women stood. Several were crying. Elena felt something shift inside her, a final piece of healing clicking into place. After her speech, Elena spent an hour answering questions and speaking with attendees individually. Woman after woman approached with their own stories of betrayal and recovery. Elena listened to each one, offering what guidance she could. One young woman in her 20s waited until the crowd had thinned. "I'm not divorced," she admitted. "I'm actually engaged. But I watched your video when it happened, and I saved it. Whenever I doubt whether my fiancé is the right person, I watch how you handled that moment. You knew your worth. I'm learning to know mine before I walk down the aisle." Elena hugged her. "That's the wisest thing you can do." Driving home that evening, Elena realized something that had been building for months, but only now became crystal clear. The humiliation she'd experienced hadn't destroyed her, it had revealed her. It had stripped away everything false and comfortable, forcing her to discover what remained when the pretense was gone. What remained was stronger than she'd ever imagined. She pulled into her driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at her house. The house that was entirely hers now. The house where she built a life with Marcus and then rebuilt one without him. She was grateful for the marriage ending. Not for the betrayal that still hurt in unexpected moments, but for the ending itself, for the space it created for her to become who she was always meant to be. Elena had spent 12 years trying to be a good wife, molding herself to fit someone else's expectations. Now she was learning to simply be herself, flawed, strong, capable of mercy and fury in equal measure. The woman who'd stood on that rooftop 18 months ago, wiping spit from her face, had been a stranger to herself. The woman who sat in this car tonight knew exactly who she was, and that self-knowledge was worth more than any marriage she'd lost. 9 months after Elena's conference speech, Marcus sent her a letter. It arrived at her flagship restaurant in a plain envelope addressed in handwriting she still recognized despite everything. Her manager brought it to her office with a questioning look. "From your ex-husband," Maria said carefully. "Do you want me to throw it away?" Elena hesitated, then shook her head. "No, I'll read it." Alone in her office, she opened the envelope and pulled out 3 handwritten pages. Marcus's handwriting was messier than she remembered, less controlled. She began to read, "Elena, I don't expect you to respond to this. I don't deserve that courtesy. I just need you to know some things," and the letter felt safer than trying to call or show up in person, both of which would violate the restraining order anyway. "I've spent the last year in therapy. At first, I only went because my lawyer suggested it might help if your criminal charges went forward. But then something shifted. I started actually listening to what my therapist was saying about accountability and consequences and the person I'd become. I destroyed our marriage. I know that. I destroyed it through infidelity, through financial abuse, through lies and manipulation. I destroyed it because I was selfish and weak and convinced myself that I deserved to have everything I wanted without. Considering the cost to you, Gabrielle, and I lasted 3 months after the party. When the excitement was gone and we were just 2 people trying to build something real, there was nothing there. She left me for someone with more money and better prospects. I don't blame her. I had nothing to offer except baggage and regret. I lost my job. The firm let me go after the fraud allegations became public. I lost most of our friends. People don't want to associate with someone who forged his wife's signature and stole from her. I lost my reputation, my career trajectory, my financial stability. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because I want you to know that I understand, truly understand, what I threw away when I betrayed you. I threw away a woman who loved me, who built an empire with her own hands, who showed me mercy when she could have destroyed me completely. You offered me a way out that didn't involve prison, and I almost threw it back in your face because my pride couldn't accept that I was guilty. That's how delusional I'd become. I actually believed I was the victim in our story. I work as a freelance draftsman now. Small projects, residential additions, nothing prestigious. I live in a modest apartment. I drive a used car. I'm rebuilding from almost nothing, which is exactly what I deserve. But here's what I really want to tell you. I'm grateful. Not for what I lost, I deserve to lose all of it. I'm grateful that you showed me what real strength looks like. When you stood there with dignity while Gabrielle spit on you. When you built your case methodically instead of just screaming at me. When you offered me mercy I didn't earn. You showed me what character actually means. I see now that you were always the strong one. You were always the one carrying us. I just took what you offered and gave nothing back except lies and betrayal. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did, and I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry in a way I wasn't capable of being before. I hope your restaurants are thriving. I hope you found happiness. I hope you've forgotten me completely. Marcus. Elena read the letter 3 times, sitting in her quiet office while the restaurant bustled beyond her door. She felt a complicated tangle of emotions, anger at what he'd done, sadness for what they'd lost, something approaching pity for the man he'd become. But she didn't feel forgiveness. Not yet, maybe not ever. And she realized it was okay. She pulled out a piece of her own stationery and wrote a brief response. Marcus, I received your letter. I appreciate your honesty and your apology. I believe you're genuinely sorry now, and I hope therapy continues to help you understand yourself better. But I want to be clear about something. I don't forgive you. Not because I'm holding on to anger. I'm not. I've moved past what happened. I've built a life I love. I don't think about you most days. I don't forgive you because forgiveness isn't something you're owed, and I'm not required to grant it just because you've apologized. Your apology is about your healing, not mine. I've already healed without your participation. I don't wish you harm. I genuinely hope you rebuild a good life. But I also don't need to absolve you to move forward with my own life. I've already moved forward. Take care of yourself. Learn from this. Be better in your next relationship than you were in ours. Elena. She sealed the letter and mailed it that afternoon. She felt lighter afterward, not because she'd forgiven Marcus, but because she'd been honest about not forgiving him. She'd released herself from the expectation that healing required absolution. That evening, Elena had dinner plans with someone new. His name was David, a teacher she'd met 3 months ago, when he'd brought a group of students to tour her restaurant's kitchen as part of a culinary arts program. He was kind, funny, genuine, in ways that made Elena feel safe. They'd been taking things slowly: coffee dates, long walks, hours of conversation about everything and nothing. They met at a small bistro near the park, sitting outside under string lights as autumn cooled into early winter. You seem lighter tonight, David observed, reaching across the table to touch her hand gently. Something good happen? Elena smiled. I got a letter from my ex-husband. An apology. David's expression became cautious. How did that make you feel? Honestly? Nothing dramatic. He's sorry. I'm not angry anymore. But I'm also not interested in reconnecting or offering forgiveness he thinks will make him feel better. That sounds healthy. It feels healthy. For the first time, I don't feel guilty about not forgiving him. I used to think there was something wrong with me for holding back, like I was supposed to be bigger and better and more magnanimous. But I realized forgiveness isn't required for healing. I've healed without it. David nodded thoughtfully. My ex-wife cheated on me when we were married. Everyone kept telling me I needed to forgive her to move on. But I moved on without forgiving her, and that was okay too. Exactly. People confuse forgiveness with healing, but they're different things. They talked for hours about past relationships and future dreams, about mistakes and second chances. Elena felt something she hadn't felt in years: genuine hope for romantic partnership, built on honesty instead of illusion. When David walked her to her car, he kissed her goodnight. It was gentle and unhurried, a kiss that promised possibility without demanding anything. "I really like you," he said simply. "I really like you too." Driving home, Elena thought about redemption and forgiveness and the complicated space between them. Marcus was seeking redemption through apology, trying to become a better person after hitting rock bottom. She respected that journey, even if she wasn't required to participate in it. Her own journey wasn't about forgiving Marcus. It was about forgiving herself for not seeing the signs sooner, for investing so much in someone who hadn't valued it, for taking so long to demand better. She'd spent the past year rebuilding not just her business and her finances, but her sense of self-worth. She'd learned that she deserved honesty, loyalty, partnership. She'd learned that she could survive betrayal and come out stronger. And she'd learned that redemption isn't about absolving others. It's about becoming the version of yourself that you're proud to be. Elena pulled into her driveway and sat in the quiet car, grateful for the journey that had brought her here. Grateful for the ending that had made space for new beginnings. Grateful for the woman she'd become through the fire of loss and rebuilding. She didn't need Marcus's redemption. She had her own. And that was more than enough. 80 months after signing the final divorce papers, Elena stood in the kitchen of her fifth restaurant, this one in the historic district, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city square. It was a Saturday morning, and she was teaching a cooking class to a group of women from the financial empowerment program she'd been working with. The most important ingredient in any dish, Elena told the group as they worked on preparing a complex sauce, is confidence. If you believe you can make it work, you usually can. If you doubt yourself, you'll hesitate at the wrong moment and everything falls apart. She watched the women work, some divorced like her, others widowed, some simply rebuilding after financial hardship. They'd all faced moments when their worlds crumbled, and they'd all chosen to rebuild. One of the students, a woman named Patricia in her 50s, raised her hand. "How did you know when you were ready to start dating again?" she asked. "I've been divorced for 6 months, and I can't imagine trusting anyone new." Elena considered the question carefully. "I didn't wait until I felt ready. I waited until I felt whole again on my own. There's a difference. I didn't need someone to complete me. I was already complete. I just wanted someone to share my complete life with." "And you found that?" another woman asked. Elena smiled, thinking of David. They'd been together for 9 months now, taking their time, building trust gradually. He'd met her family last month. She'd met his kids 2 weeks ago. Everything was moving at exactly the right pace, the pace of two people who both learned that rushing leads to mistakes. "I found someone good," Elena said. "Someone honest. Someone who sees me clearly and likes what he sees. But more importantly, I found myself first. That was the prerequisite for everything else." After the class ended, Elena stayed to clean up, moving through the familiar rhythm of tidying a kitchen. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sophia. "Lunch tomorrow?" "I have news." Elena smiled and typed back. "Your place or mine?" "Mine. I'm cooking." Be prepared to be impressed. The next afternoon, Elena arrived at Sophia's apartment carrying wine and flowers. Sophia greeted her with a huge smile and immediately thrust her left hand forward, showing off an engagement ring. "He proposed," Sophia squealed. "Last night at the restaurant where we had our first date." Elena hugged her friend tightly. "I'm so happy for you. Robert is wonderful." "He is. And watching your journey through divorce and rebuilding showed me what healthy love looks like." You set the bar high, my friend. They spent the afternoon cooking together and talking about wedding plans. Elena would be maid of honor. The wedding would be next fall. Everything was excitement and possibility. Do you ever regret it? Sophia asked as they sat down to eat. The divorce, the public nature of it, all the pain you went through? Elena thought about the question honestly. I regret marrying Marcus in the first place. I regret not seeing who he really was. But I don't regret how I handled the ending. I did it with dignity. I protected myself. I showed mercy when I could have been cruel. I became who I needed to be. You inspired a lot of people. I inspired myself, Elena said softly. That's what matters most. That evening, Elena went home to her lake house, a house that was fully, completely, entirely hers. She walked through the rooms she'd redecorated, past the walls where wedding photos used to hang, into the garden where she'd planted new roses this spring. David was coming over for dinner later. She'd cook something simple: pasta with homemade sauce, fresh bread, a salad from her garden. They'd eat on the deck and watch the sun set over the water. They'd talk about their days, their dreams, their plans for the future. But first, Elena had a moment alone with her thoughts. She poured a glass of wine and sat on her deck, looking at the lake she loved. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from the woman who'd stood on a rooftop while someone spit in her face, to the woman she was. Now, she'd learned so many lessons in the past 2 years. About strength and dignity. About mercy and justice. About the difference between forgiveness and healing. About knowing your worth and refusing to accept less. But the most important lesson was this: your value isn't determined by who chooses you, or who betrays you, or who stands beside you. Your value is inherent, unchanging, yours to recognize and claim. Marcus hadn't diminished her worth by cheating. He'd simply revealed his own inability to recognize what he had. Gabrielle hadn't damaged Elena by spitting on her. She'd exposed her own character, while Elena's remained intact. The viral video that could have destroyed Elena's reputation had instead become proof of her composure. The public humiliation that could have broken her had instead revealed her strength. The worst moment of her life had somehow led to the best version of herself. Elena sat on her deck and felt a profound sense of peace. She'd survived betrayal and came out stronger. She'd faced financial fraud and protected what was hers. She'd shown mercy to someone who didn't deserve it, because she wanted to be the kind of person who could offer mercy. She'd built 5 successful restaurants. She'd started a foundation that helped other women rebuild. She'd found love again with someone who valued her. She'd created a life she was proud of, not in spite of what happened, but because of it. The sun was setting now, painting the lake in shades of gold and amber. Elena heard David's car pull into the driveway. She stood up and smoothed her dress, ready to greet him, ready for whatever came next. Behind her was a past she'd healed from. Ahead of her was a future she'd built with her own hands. And in this moment, Elena Rodriguez was exactly where she was supposed to be: strong, whole, and free. The moral wasn't that betrayal leads to growth. It was that how you respond to betrayal determines who you become. Elena had chosen dignity over revenge, strategy over emotion, mercy over cruelty. She'd chosen herself, and in the end, that choice had made all the difference.